Okay, how do I make that go full screen?
F5,
What is it?
F5,
Is that function 5?
or F7, F5. It's a PDF.
Aha, fantastic. By the power of technology, we are live. So welcome and thanks for bearing with me a few minutes, and welcome to my talk. Today, I'm going to be talking about accessing or making use of some technology to help to grow our profession of Chinese medicine, whether you consider yourself an acupuncturist, a Chinese medicine practitioner, or a doctor of Chinese medicine or Oriental medicine. We all fundamentally come from a very similar background, and we're all, and I'm making a presumption here that we all are interested in developing not only our own skills as practitioners, but being able to also uh, increase the well-being and change the disease characteristics of the patients that come to see us. But there's a third thing that I think often gets left behind, and that's this idea of community. And what I want to talk about today is how you guys can be a part of growing a global community. And a live event like this is a good place to start because we have people from all over the world. You know, we're over here in Houston, Texas. Um, I'm from Australia. There are people from other countries, no doubt. I've seen a crew from Italy and other parts of Europe. So we're growing our community, but doing it live is a hard way for us to do that in a global sense. So today I want to talk about how new platforms, new technologies, or at least digital technologies are allowing us to expand our reach as practitioners and expand our community as a whole. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to not only improve our own lot and the lot of our patients, but if we can have an impact on the way that the community develops around Chinese medicine, then I think that's a very useful thing. So how new platforms are enhancing an ancient profession. And I was thinking about how to kind of define this. And, you know, it's really about establishing a global network of like-minded practitioners in a community where we all have, oops, again. Yeah. Technology and water. I'm not sure that's a good, good combination. Don't worry too much about it. So we're going for a like-minded audience where we're bound by this similar thing, similar values, mutual respect, sharing a genuine and a genuine care for our profession as well as our patients. And that's a really important part of what we're doing. And the beauty of technology is that we can do that regardless of our geographic position. We can do it from anywhere in the world. My name's Alex. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, just like you guys. I trained in Melbourne, Australia, and that's where I practice. And I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about our industry, and I'm extremely passionate about growing a community, an audience that you and I can plug into regardless of where we are in the world. And despite us coming from a history, arguably 5,000 years or thereabouts in terms of our medical tradition, we live in modern times. And it's really important that as practitioners, we make use of modern tools. And when we think about technology, when I think about technology, and I'll give you an example, I was living in Japan about a decade ago and living up in the mountains. Has anyone here been to Japan, just out of curiosity? Nobody? I was living up in the, yeah, okay, good. So I was living up in the mountains of Japan, and we were going through what was described to us as the local technology. And the local technology was, how do you go about stripping the bark off a tree in order to put a roof on your house? And 100, 200, 300 years ago, this was the modern technology. And we can plot the way that technology changes the shape of our environment, our living environment, our geographical environment, but also our medical environment. And what we want to do is we want to make sure we take the roots of what we practice, but find ways of plugging into the current technology that allow us to then to just disseminate that in a much broader way. So an ancient profession, modern times, and as practitioners, we talk to our patients about stagnation. Is there a day in your clinic where you don't talk about stagnation to a patient? Probably not. And I worry about our profession when we think about, particularly when we talk about traditional Chinese medicine. I worry about our tradition being not just referencing the past, but being a theoretical perspective. But it's also about how do we go about communicating our message to a broader public? How do we get more people to understand what Chinese medicine is about, what Chinese medicine can help with, and how do we do that to a global audience? So we want to free ourselves from this stagnation that we tend to create in our own selves, in our own practices, in our own profession, by hanging on too tightly to the past. So using the tools of the digital age, the communication age, gives us an opportunity to really start to move forward. And for me, progress is not about the technology itself, but it's about using the tools that are available to us in order to get a particular outcome. And the outcome that I'm spruiking today is really about community building communities for ourselves as practitioners so that we can plug into an ever-expanding network, which of course gives us access to information and learning and other opportunities that we won't get if we don't make use of these tools that are now available to us. So I think progress equals the use of technology in a smart way, creating a viable and thinking profession. I think that's very important. So what's lacking? You know, I kind of think about this in terms of my own practice, and I've mentioned this word community a few times already. And for me, community is the thing that we struggle with, or that I struggle with most. And for most of us, we're working as solo practitioners or in small groups. We don't tend to accumulate in big centres. We tend to be 1, 2, 3 people working together at a time. And as a result, it can certainly feel, in my experience, that that's isolating as a practitioner. Does anyone else have that experience of working, you know, in a small group or on their own and finding it a challenge to plug into a network? And it's a really common thing that we all face. So it makes sense for us to try and find a way around that so that we can build a stronger and more vibrant community. And the interesting thing is, and I suspect that this is the power of Chinese medicine, is that despite the challenges and the difficulty of growing a global community historically, Chinese medicine has still managed to spread throughout the world. Every corner of the world, Chinese medicine has had an impact. So can you imagine what we could have if we all took use or all made use of the tools that are currently available to us? And I could list a few of them right now. I can think about, well, you know, I'm running this as a live telecast. Has anyone here run a webinar? Hands up. I have. Yeah, Richard has. but not many. And I suspect if we surveyed the group of 600 or 700 people that are here this weekend, not very many people are making use of the communication tools that we have at our disposal. So this is just one method, but what it does do when everything works well is it allows us to distribute information more broadly. I'll give you another example. A colleague of mine, Kath Berry, she over the last few days they've run an online event called Impact. Has anyone heard of that? And what it was an online CPD program, basically where they had a range of talks and panel discussions for Chinese medicine practitioners. So you can plug into that regardless of where you are in the world. So in terms of using technology, using this as a tool becomes incredibly powerful. And that's what I'd like to encourage you all to do. Start to think about, how can I expand the reach of what I do for my patients, for my peers, for my colleagues, and how can I create a community around that? So how do we do it? Well, digital is the answer. And it's I'm smiling at my own irony here a little bit, because there are aspects of the digital that are a real nuisance. Email popping up in the middle of the night, for example, or in some ways, the digital world makes us too connected. Has anyone had that experience where it's very hard to disconnect from people who are trying to get to you? And often it's Facebook or things that actually aren't particularly useful, in my experience. So I think there's a place for going analog as well. But in terms of creating a global community, digital is certainly the way to do it. And why is that? Because it's really easy to access. It's easy for us to connect and to collaborate and to share globally. So, for example, in our magazine, I don't know whether you've come across Chinese Medicine Digital Magazine yet, but the current issue has Dr. Dan Keown on the cover, and Dan's a really interesting guy. I live in Australia; he lives in London, so very hard for me to go and interview him, which would have been, traditionally, if I was going to do an interview, I'd have to get on an aeroplane and turn up in London and interview him, or get on the phone. Well, what we did actually was get on Skype, similar to the way that I'm telecasting this, and interview him more or less in person. And that can then be distributed digitally through the magazine, by email, online. So you can see how we take, something that could have been done in the very hard way, a bit like how I've come here. It feels pretty hard after a long flight, and we can do it using the modern technology as a great tool. So in terms of connecting, that's a really terrific thing. Just out of interest, has anyone read Dan Keown's book? It's called The Spark in the Machine. Has anyone come across that? Dr. Dan Keown, Keown. He's a emergency department physician in London, but his book about qi is just extraordinary. Okay, so I can recommend, if you're interested, the issue of the magazine that he's featured on is free for the participants this weekend. So it's definitely worth having a look at, just to give the magazine a plug as well. So what digital does is it gives us an opportunity to create new connections that perhaps were not available or not possible, perhaps not even plausible in the past. And why is that important? Well, what it does do is it creates for us a platform for promotion. And promotion can be about you, the practitioner, in your own community. Okay, so as a digital tool for creating promotion around your own practice, it's great for disseminating research. And as an entrepreneur, which most of us are, as clinicians running small businesses, perhaps a good deal of us are reluctant entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs just the same, because most of us are running practices for ourselves. Using technology, regardless of what your current skills are, is a great way to start to really increase your reach as a practitioner and start to improve our own community. Okay. And the great thing about that is your clinic can expand not just from local, but to further afield. And we have consultations, and lots of people are starting to consult by Skype, or at least to be able to disseminate information by webinar, which is incredibly powerful. It's great for creating and distributing product. It's incredible for unlocking research and for spreading industry-specific news. So I can talk to you about Dr. Dan Keown, and if you'd been a subscriber to the magazine, you'd already have seen the article and perhaps read his book. And it gives us the opportunity to plug into information that perhaps we didn't have access to before. Okay? And some of that information can be incredibly powerful. I can see a time where, and maybe this is a thought for the future, perhaps even in 12 months' time at the next Wfas conference, where some of these keynote presentations are telecast or televised live over the internet. So we're not trying to tell people not to come, but how many people would be interested in accessing this type of information if they had access to it as part of our community? So I think these are things that are really important to consider. And also, as Chinese medicine grows, as we grow our community, then so too Chinese medicine as a profession grows. And I really strongly believe this, that the stronger we are individually in our practices, the stronger our community is in our local area, the stronger our broader global community is as practitioners, as a profession, the greater the reach and the impact that Chinese medicine will have as a global voice, as a community-based voice, and that's incredibly important. And part of the reason I'm so passionate about this as a medium to do it. But the question is, out of 800 people who are here this weekend, there's 12 or 13 people here. So what's in it for you, the practitioner? Why should you get involved? Well, there's one really good reason. In fact, for me, it's the most important reason. And that is, as a healthcare provider, as a primary healthcare provider, you are, at least for the patient sitting across from you, a health leader. And leadership is about not doing the same as everything else. By definition, it's about taking charge and making change. And making change on an individual level with your patient is important. In fact, it's critical. How happy would the patient be if they walked out exactly the same as when they walked in? So we are practitioners of change. We are change facilitators. So you can take, okay, if I'm going to be a leader to this patient one-on-one, why should I not be a leader to my community locally? Why should I not consider myself a leader in the field of Chinese medicine? Why shouldn't I expand my boundaries and push a little bit harder? Why shouldn't I have a voice? Why shouldn't I have an opinion? Well, the answer is you should have. In fact, I guarantee you all do. The difference is, do you have an opportunity? Do you have a forum? Do you have a platform to be able to express that? And the beauty of the digital is that it gives us the opportunity to really put ourselves forward. And as I said, the more we put ourselves forward, the more Chinese medicine will grow and the greater our community will become. So here's what to do next. I've got a couple of action steps for you. As one of my marketing mentors would say, always have a call to action at the end of a talk. So the call to action today is very simple. Don't go home and do nothing. Go home and do something. And become the change facilitator that I know you already are to your patients. Become that. The challenge from me to you is to become the change facilitator for our industry and for our profession. Become someone who shows leadership to the broader community. By helping us to build a community that is global in reach. I love getting on an airplane and coming to Texas. And this is my first trip to Texas, and wow, what a great time already. No sleep or otherwise, it's still a great time. And we'd love you to come to Australia and visit what we do. But imagine in the meantime, for us to be able to communicate as if we were live, Imagine what it must have been like when the telephone was first invented, and long distance calls and the cost that was associated with that. Now you and I can jump on Skype, just find a good time and we can chat and we can record it and we can put it out to the masses. And that's incredibly powerful. So my challenge to you is to use technology as the incredible tool that it is and start to help us to create that global community. My final action step is, if you haven't seen the magazine yet, come and have a chat to me. I'm here all day tomorrow. Come and flick through my iPad, see what it's all about, and come and put your voice forward as a contributor to the magazine. Let's get you out there into the marketplace, helping me and us and all our colleagues to build an incredible profession and create a community that we can be very proud of. I'm Alex Perry. Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
Too late in the day for questions.
I have one question.
Yes.
How many readers for your this magazine?
We've had, in the last 12 months, there have been 7,000 downloads.
That's
Yeah, so it's
only internet or?
It's online. You can only get it. In fact, it's been iPad only until recently. Now it's available on Android as well, but there's no print copy. It's all online. And the beauty of a digital magazine is it can have video and other content in there as well. It's not limited to words. Yeah.
As you said, now the digital is so powerful, digital communications. So everyone can be stay at home, the rest of the world. So what do you think those international community organizations are still how you value those organizations?
Well, I think I think the role of organisations is changing, but there is still an important role. It's a bit like saying, I've got my Kindle. Do I want to pick up a paperback? And the answer is I do. I really want to flick through. I love my digital magazine and I love swiping on my iPad. But you know what? I really like to go to the library or the magazine store and pick up a physical magazine as well. And I think that the role of an organisation is going to be very similar. I still want to be able to meet you, face to face and go and have a coffee and come to Texas and be involved. So there's a place for both. The challenge is how do we use the technology in a positive and effective way to expand our community? And it's that expansion. So we can meet in person, but there'll be a bunch of people, there's, I don't know, half a dozen or less of us from Australia here this weekend. How many other Australians, for example, could have plugged into this conference or be part of the organisation if it was easier with the technological platform? So I think that the answer is there is a changing role for all of us. It's how we use this as a tool that's important, and that's what I'd really stress. The technology is just a tool. It's just a way of communicating. It's not the be all and the end all. At the end of the day, these are just machines. These are actually machines, right? We've got to use them to allow us to reach our aim, whatever that happens to be.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alex.
Sorry, I tried it, but I don't know it.
It's still working, so I'm gonna guess it's okay. Oh, thank you very much.